What's up guys, Tyler Toad here and welcome to the channel. Recently I was asked to give a speech in front of hundreds of people at an entrepreneurship conference. If I'm real honest, when I was first asked to do this, my first thought was no way. I'm afraid of that. I got some anxiety around that. I feel like an imposter. And so, I really felt a big sense of fear in wanting to do that. The more I thought about it though, I really thought, no growth happens outside of our comfort zone. I need to run towards that fear and go tackle it. I'm happy to say I did that. I worked through some of the things that I needed to work through and went and delivered a great speech and had a great time. But I'm going to share with you guys today 5 steps and a framework I used for moving through that fear and conquering it and getting on the other side of it. Again, I think it's easy to stay in spots that are comfortable. In fact, our brain is designed to keep us comfortable. But all growth, whether that be physical, mental, spiritual, will always happen where we're not comfortable. And so in a society today that delivers food on demand, got 1,000 channels on demand, it's easy to stay comfortable. We have to intentionally seek some of these harder things to continue to make ourselves grow and go up levels in life. So let's hop in today, guys. The crazy thing is, as I started to dig into this, imposter syndrome, what that meant, why I was feeling these ways, I realized that almost every successful person will deal with this at some point in their lives. In fact, even the great Albert Einstein, we can throw a picture up of our man Albie here, said towards the end of his life, I feel like a fraud. I feel like I'm swindling people. I don't know anything. This is one of the biggest geniuses of all time. So that put me at ease. Hey, if Albert Einstein can feel a little bit like this, it's probably okay if I do too, and it's probably just a normal reaction. So step 1 and the first thing that I took was I reframed the situation. I set a different perspective and shifted the lens in my mind. I basically asked myself and started to journal, what's the worst case scenario that could happen? I go up on stage, I bomb, I still get paid for the event, and you know what? My life is still exactly the same. That's the absolute worst case scenario. A few people up there maybe think that I'm not very good or don't know anything I'm talking about, and that's the absolute worst case scenario. The best case scenario was I crush it, I gain more clients, I get asked to do more speaking, and I grow through this thing. So when I kind of reframed that in my head that way and said, well, what's the worst outcome? It's not really that bad. There's not really a lot to be afraid of. I also started to visualize myself in my head. What's it going to be like up there speaking? I just closed my eyes and pictured and became very calm. And I'll get more into some of those techniques later. But I think a real powerful takeaway here is that you can reframe any situation. I started telling myself what an opportunity this was. And again, when I looked at that worst case, best case scenario, it really made sense to do it and not really feel any anxiety around it. The second tip I'll give you is to seek support. This can be through mentors, friends, a spouse. You can journal and do this yourself, but really get those thoughts out. Understand why you're having this fear. Does mine come from some self-doubt or some things in my past, that fear of failure? I needed to talk through some of those things and understand why I was like that. So once I got these things on paper and I talked to some mentors, talked to my spouse about it, got some support and built up from others around me, it really made sense and put a lot of those fears at ease. Too often we struggle in silence, whether that be with fears, whether that be with anxiety, whatever that is. I think it's so healthy and it's so awesome to realize we're all human beings. We're all trying to figure this thing out for the first time too. Letting other people know I have these fears. And the cool thing was, when I let a lot of people who I admire, they're up here on different levels, I think in my head, they're like, yeah, Ty, I face that same stuff too. Let's talk about it. Even realizing that other people face this with me, people that I consider farther down the road than me, that put my mind at ease a lot too, and just made me realize I'm a human being. It's natural to have these feelings. Now let's take a logical approach and see how we can move forward. A cheat code I'll give you guys on this one too, only for you Jesus people out here. Man, tap into the power of the Holy Spirit. I actually went into my car a few days before, I blasted some praise music, and I basically just prayed and said, hey God, I don't feel worthy or equipped to do this. But you know what? You can speak the words through me. You put the message out there for me. And if this is something you really want me to do, I'm going to go do it. I basically just turned it over to Jesus and said, hey, this is your show anyway. This isn't mine. So you speak through me. That probably took my anxiety from about a 90 to about a 5 right there. So it's a cheat code for you Jesus people out there. The third thing I'm going to say about this is just to face your fear head on. I think you can build up a tolerance for fear and a tolerance for things you're afraid of. And I'll be very honest, if this was 3 or 4 years ago and I hadn't put out 100+ videos on YouTube, I hadn't put out probably 1,000 videos on Twitter and podcasts and all these things, there's not a chance in the world I would have gone and done this. 4+ years ago when I first started sharing a little bit on social media, Man, I remember shooting the first film, the first video of me just doing some pull-ups. I probably shot that thing 70 times. I cared what other people thought a lot. And so again, I've worked through a lot of these things. I'll shoot this one take today. I shoot most of the things I do one take today, and I basically say, you know what, I'm gonna do the best job I can, and whoever it affects, it's supposed to affect, and that's awesome, but I'm gonna go on and keep living my life regardless. So I think, you can build up to these things. I think you can take this approach with anything at life too. I often joke that, when I first met my wife, who's a vegetarian, I'm very much a meat eater, I never really ate vegetables. I didn't. And I know vegetables are good for me and I should. So, it's not like I was afraid of vegetables, but I just didn't do it. And so the way that I started to learn, and it's actually shout out to my wife, is the one that had this idea, I just baked like 80% barbecue sauce on a lot of my vegetables. So I've eaten green beans and corn, but they're soaked in barbecue sauce. Do that for a week, then I'd move it down to about 60% barbecue sauce. Do that for a couple weeks, 40%, 20%. And before you know it, now I eat vegetables every day of my life. I like them, but it would have seemed overwhelming to just be chewing through these vegetables that I hate without any sauce at the beginning. I think you take that same approach to fear. Whatever that thing is you're afraid of, take it in small steps, face it head on, but do it. You don't have to solve the whole staircase right away. You just got to take the next step. And once you realize that in your head, you can say, all right, let's just take the next step towards this. Before you know it, you're coming out the other side, a whole new person, you've grown a lot. Number 4, and this is a big one, practicing relaxation techniques. Anybody who knows me or spends time with me understands that every day a big part of my life is breath work. I feel like God breathed life into us. It's so powerful to be able at any moment to take some deep breaths, feel your heart rate slow, and really start to think where I want my next thought to go. Really powerful techniques around meditation, breath work, visualization, kind of alluded to that one earlier. And I think we can use all these techniques to our benefit. When you get anxious or afraid, your body actually shows physical symptoms. You get shortness of breath, you get tension, you can feel it coming up to your jaw. Your heart rate again will increase, you'll start to sweat. These things like this. So what can we do to combat those physical symptoms? We go back to the breath work. We go back to meditating. We go back to the visualization. Now, I was studying this last week about the power of visualization and just how powerful this is. So what I started doing was taking 2-3 minutes a day, nothing crazy, but I would visualize and picture myself up on that stage delivering a really good speech, an impactful speech. When I started studying this and reading it, it really blew my mind that they did tons of studies back a couple decades ago where they took subsets of kids who had never really played basketball, and for 1 hour, they would give them basketballs and say, hey, practice shooting free throws. The other subset of kids, they would say, you can't touch a basketball, but we're gonna have you work with the coach and just visualize yourself making that free throw. Time and time again, the study showed the people that visualized success were actually even more successful than the people that just practiced over and over again. I think that shows us how important it is to visualize, to take some time to slow down every single day and really be thoughtful and mindful about running towards the things that we may be afraid of. In our busy culture and busy society today, it's very easy to be distracted. You can pull out your phone anytime, you got notifications, emails, deadlines, works, kids, name it. We got a million things biting for our attention. And I think the most powerful thing I realized through all of this is at any moment, and I need to create that space intentionally, I can take a few moments and actively decide where my thoughts go and visualize who I want to be and where I want to go and to run through that fear. Number 5, and look, this all only comes together if you take action. And so that's my 5th step, is to take action. I mentioned that staircase analogy before. I'm really big into that. You don't need to solve the whole thing today. You just need to take the next step. And too often I hear, especially a lot of Jesus people here, this is for you guys again, well, I'm praying for this or I'm praying for that. That's awesome. I love prayer. I pray daily, constantly. I love the power of prayer. But I'd ask you to say, you got to work for what you pray for too. And so you have to take action for these things. I'm not going to go stand out in the middle of the road and pray that God saves me. I'm going to move my feet and make sure I'm not in the middle of the road. With the same thing with fear and the same thing that we feel these calling on our lives and where we're supposed to go, I need to pray for strength and I need to ask the Holy Spirit to give me strength. I also need to move my feet and get out and study and learn and grow and take steps towards them and all these things that I've talked about before. Another big strategy along this is celebrate the small wins along the way. Maybe your fear is to, you want to get out of corporate and be your own boss. That looks overwhelming. I get it. I've been there. but celebrate the small wins. Man, I hit 100 followers on social. I wrote an ebook. You know what? I studied and got this course. Whatever that looks like for you, celebrate the small wins along the way. Don't stop and keep going. So that's my 5-step process for facing fears. Change your perspective, seek support, face your fear head on, practice relaxation techniques, and take action. So I hope this has been somewhat helpful for you guys today. I know it felt really good to get on the other side of my fear and conquer that. I'm happy to say I went up, gave a great speech, did a lot of Q&A, had a lot of fun with this event, got amazing feedback afterwards, and it was just overall such a great experience. It would have been safer to skip it. The small amount of money I was paid to go do this isn't going to change, my family or me and my wife's life. But the growth that happened because I put myself in an uncomfortable position, because I ran towards the thing I was afraid of, has been amazing. I've already been asked to do a couple other events, and I'm really excited about it. And so I would challenge you guys today to think about that thing that's holding you back, that limiting belief, that fear inside your mind, and start to use some of this framework and get on the other side of that. That's where all growth happens, and nobody's getting to the end of their life saying, man, I'm just so glad I played it safe. Just so glad I never bet on myself or took that chance. So I'd urge you today to get out a notebook, start to write some of these things down. What are you afraid of? Fire them down below, shoot me a message. I'll encourage you, I'll help you along the way as well. Hope you guys have the greatest day of your life. Go be kind to yourself, go be kind to others. Have the greatest day.